In Texas, they're going hog wild over wild hogs. The feral animals are causing hundreds of millions of dollars of damage to crops across the state. And to help deal with the problem, state lawmakers have approved the hunting of wild hogs and coyotes.
$119 million gone every single year. Wild boars were destroying Texas farms while the rest of the United States simply watched and laughed at their suffering. But then something changed. Texas deployed a solution so unexpected that critics went silent and neighboring states started taking notes. Feral hogs are a non-native species, and they have overrun the landscape of the southern United States, with Texas experiencing the worst damage. It's guesstimated that over 2 million hogs live in our state alone. What happened behind the scenes involved methods that most people didn't think were possible, technology nobody saw coming, and results that might stun everyone who had dismissed Texas as utterly helpless. The wild boar problem isn't just being managed anymore, it's being dismantled. And the way they're doing it, it's rewriting the playbook on invasive species, one shocking breakthrough at a time, the first signs of a turning point. At first, nobody believed it was working. Farmers who'd been losing hundreds of acres every year thought the reports were exaggerating. Another government promise that would fade away. But then something strange started happening in small pockets of Texas. Trail cameras that once captured nightly invasions went quiet. Farmers began waking up to intact fields for the first time in years. Helicopters flying low over farmland reported fewer and fewer sounders moving at night. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was the first measurable change anyone had seen in decades. The transformation began quietly, not with a new weapon, but with coordination. A few determined communities stopped working alone and started syncing their attacks with trapping, hunting, and monitoring as one. Instead of chasing hogs from one property to the next, they boxed them in. Within weeks, results rippled through entire counties. That was the moment people realized something big was happening. The hogs weren't disappearing by chance. They were being outsmarted. It wasn't luck, and it wasn't one miracle invention. It was the start of a strategy that would soon evolve into one of the most sophisticated invasive species control systems ever attempted in the United States. But how did Texas go from helpless to high-tech? How did they turn an agricultural nightmare into an organized fight that the hogs couldn't adapt to? To understand that, we have to go back to the moment the problem first appeared. When the problem first appeared in 2004, Jay Norman was planting corn when he reached the end of a row and turned his tractor around. Behind him, more than 100 wild boars were eating the seeds he'd just planted. Not from yesterday, not from last week. Seeds that just hit the ground minutes ago were already being devoured. He watched in disbelief as the hogs moved systematically through the rows, digging up every single kernel. By the time he could react, they'd wiped out hours of work and huge amounts of resources. This wasn't a random incident. This was the beginning of something Texas had never dealt with before. That same year marked the first time Norman's Fannin County farm experienced hog damage. 20 years earlier, he'd witnessed it on someone else's land in Dorchester and thought it was a fluke. Now, the problem was at his doorstep, and it wasn't leaving. Norman replants acres of his land every single year because of wild boar damage. Seed, fuel, labor, and time, all wasted because feral hogs know exactly what a corn planter looks like and come running when they see one. The intelligence of these animals is what catches farmers off guard. They don't wander randomly into fields hoping to find food. They watch planting patterns. They wait until the tractor moves far enough away, and then they strike. But here's what nobody talks about. Norman's situation isn't unique. It's not even close to the worst case in Texas. Across the state, 2.6 million feral hogs are causing destruction that's forcing farmers to make impossible choices. And the solution Texas has come up with is unlike anything people expected. The scale of destruction. Texas farmers and ranchers lose $119 million annually to feral hogs, according to Texas Parks and Wildlife Department studies. But that number is from 2019. The figure for 2025 likely much higher. Some estimates put statewide damage at $500 million when you factor in property destruction in addition to crop damage. Texas Wildlife Services tracks these numbers, and they paint a picture that's hard to believe. We're not talking about a few broken fences or trampled gardens. Entire fields get wiped out in a single night. Adam Henry, Assistant Director Supervisor with Texas Wildlife Services, put it bluntly. We're running from one batch of hogs to the next. That's his job all day, every day, dealing with feral hog crises across Texas. Recently, wild pigs made headlines in Irving, an urban area where they tore up yards near Champions Park and uprooted property at a nearby school. If you think this is just a rural farming problem, think again. These animals are adapting, spreading, and showing up in places nobody expected. Norman says that the hogs prefer corn above everything else. They damage some soybeans and will graze on wheat, but the biggest issue is corn damage. Some farmers have switched from corn to milo, cotton, or other crops just to avoid the losses. Imagine changing your entire operation because of pigs. But switching crops doesn't solve the problem. It simply changes the target. Because the thing that makes feral hogs so dangerous is that they adapt extremely fast. Why everything failed? Norman's tried everything. Trapping, baiting, and running dogs to scare the hogs away. Every method had the same result. Temporary relief at best. We found that we just moved them to another farm or another area. He said the hogs weren't being eliminated. They were being relocated. That's not a solution. That's just passing the problem to your neighbor. Trapping sounds effective, right? Set up cages, bait them, catch the hogs, and remove them. Except it is an expensive process that requires someone full-time to feed the traps, check them constantly, and clean them out when they catch pigs. Norman knows farmers who catch 200 to 300 hogs a year through trapping, but it seems like a never-ending process, he says, because it is. Feral hogs reproduce fast. A say can have 2 litters per year, with 4 to 6 piglets each time. Across 6 million hogs in Texas. You're not keeping up with trapping. You're barely making a dent. The reproduction rate creates a nightmare scenario. Even if you eliminate 500 hogs from your property in 1 year, the surrounding population can replace those numbers within months through breeding alone. It's not a war of attrition you can win with traditional methods. You're fighting exponential growth with linear removal efforts. Then there's the intelligence factor. Hogs adapt, Norman explained. They figure out trapping patterns. They avoid fields where they've been hunted. They change their feeding times. These aren't mindless animals. They're learning and adjusting faster than the methods used against them. Farmers report hogs switching from nocturnal to daytime feeding after intense night hunting pressure. They abandon favored fields for months, then return suddenly when vigilance drops. Bruce Leland, Assistant Director of Texas Wildlife Service, confirmed what every farmer dreads hearing. We have nothing new available to control feral hogs. The tools exist: traps, hunting, aerial gunning, and toxins, but none of them work alone. So, how is everyone saying it's over for the wild boar problem? Because Texas didn't find one new solution. They found a combination that nobody saw coming: the high-tech trap revolution. Texas has gone digital, and it's changing everything. Camera-monitored traps equipped with cellular technology are now operating across the state. Farmers set up corn-filled corral with cameras connected to smartphone apps. The hogs come to feed, completely unaware they're being watched. When enough hogs enter the trap, the farmer taps their phone screen from anywhere and remotely shuts the gate. Texas Wildlife Services deployed this exact system in Irving when hogs invaded the Champions Park neighborhood. Homeowners installed electric fencing, but the real breakthrough came from the smart trap. No waiting, no guessing, complete control from a mobile device. The technology sounds simple, but the results are staggering. Traditional traps catch whatever wanders in and trips the mechanism. Sometimes one hog, sometimes none. Smart traps let you wait until the entire group enters. You're not catching stragglers. You're eliminating entire populations in with a single trap. There's a catch, though: cost. These systems aren't cheap. The equipment, the cellular service, and the maintenance, it all adds up fast. But farmers who've invested are seeing returns that justify every dollar spent. Initial setup costs thousands of dollars, depending on the trap size and camera quality. Monthly cellular fees add another exorbitant amount. However, when you compare the costs to those of replanting 160 acres of corn at $400 per acre in seed and labor alone, the smart trap pays for itself in a single prevented disaster. Some farmers split costs between neighbors, pooling resources to monitor multiple properties from shared devices. The traps also require patience and strategy. You can't just set them up and expect hogs to walk in. There's a training process that takes anywhere from 10 days to 2 weeks. It starts with the trap doors raised, letting hogs feed freely to build trust. Gradually, the doors lower bit by bit until the hogs have to exert force to lift them. By the time the trap is fully operational, the hogs have no idea they're being conditioned into capture. Amazingly, smart traps are just one piece of a much greater puzzle. Texas knew they needed something more aggressive for areas where hogs had already exploded in population. Something that could cover massive territory fast. When helicopters became weapons, Heli Bacon offers customers a seat in a multi-million-dollar helicopter at sunrise with a machine gun to hunt wild boars across 400,000 acres of Texas farmland. This is one of the most effective solutions Texas has deployed against its feral hog problem. Kaylor Carey with Heli Bacon explained the appeal. Sitting out of a multi-million-dollar helicopter, and you're shooting a machine gun at the same time. The experience attracts customers worldwide: Australians, Brits, South Africans, Canadians, and the French. This is a uniquely American activity, Carey said. Packages start at $4,000 per person. After a safety course, the helicopter launches at sunrise for 2-hour hunts. They partner with ranchers and farmers, getting permission to fly over areas where hogs are destroying crops. We can't sport hunt from the helicopter, Carey explained. We've got to give a wild chase. We have to go out and find them. Unlike deer, which stay in small territories, feral hogs are constantly on the move. The helicopter advantage is speed and coverage. Ground hunters might cover a few hundred acres in a night. Helicopter teams cover thousands. The aerial perspective reveals hog patterns invisible from the ground. Pilots spot bedding areas in thick brush where ground hunters could never reach. They identify travel corridors between feeding zones. They track sounders across creek beds and through terrain too rough for vehicles. The intelligence gathered during helicopter hunts helps farmers understand hog movement on their property better than years of ground observation. For many customers, it's their first time shooting a gun. No hunting license is required in Texas as long as you're on private land with the owner's permission. The company books hunts from late January through October, targeting peak breeding and feeding seasons. It's making a dent for the local landowners that we use. Kerry said it's helping them out a lot, but he's realistic about limitations. As far as statewide, we're only one outfitter. That's the key insight. Aerial hunting works, but it can't be the only method. You need multiple approaches to hit the hog population from different angles. And Texas wasn't done innovating. The toxin breakthrough. Here's where things get controversial and effective. Texas approved the use of warfare and base toxins specifically designed for feral hog control. This isn't random poisoning. This is precise chemical warfare with strict regulations. Anyone using the toxin must be trained and certified. They must install fencing to exclude livestock and other wildlife from the bait area. All bait containers require lids or doors that prevent non-target animals from accessing the poison. The containers themselves are engineered barriers. They have guillotine or magnetized openings that require significant force to lift. Raccoons, deer, or birds, none of them can open these feeders. Only hogs have the strength and persistence to access the bait. But here's where strategy matters. Leland explained the transition process. The key is to slowly transition from a corn pre-bait to a placebo bait with no toxin. When the hogs learn to open the containers and become accustomed to eating the placebo, that's when to add the toxicant. Training starts with feeder doors raised so hogs can eat freely. As they get comfortable, the doors lower gradually until the pigs must force them open. Some learn quicker than others. Leland said, the entire process from pre-bait to toxicant takes 10 days to 2 weeks. Landowners have to be patient in training, Leland warned. Don't take shortcuts. Farmers who rush the process end up with hogs that won't use the feeders. Patience pays off with entire sounders, family groups of 20 to 30 hogs, eliminated in coordinated strikes. Researchers are also testing sodium nitrite as an alternative toxin. The goal is to have multiple chemical options so hogs can't develop resistance or avoidance behaviors. Critics worry about environmental impact and animal welfare. Supporters point to the devastation wild boars cause to native species, water quality, and agricultural sustainability. The debate continues, but the results are undeniable. Toxin programs, when executed properly, remove hogs faster than any other ground-based method. Still, even with smart traps, helicopter hunts, and toxins, Texas needed one more element to declare that their wild boar problem is over. The coordination breakthrough. Every solution mentioned so far works, but here's why they all failed before. Nobody coordinated them. Farmers operated independently. One property trapped hogs, while the neighbor let them roam for recreational hunting. One county ran aerial hunts, while the next did nothing. Hogs simply moved to wherever pressure was lowest. A lot depends on the neighbors. Leland said everyone in a defined geographic area must work together. If even one landowner refuses to participate, wanting to keep hogs around for hunting, or not wanting to spend money, the entire region's effort gets undermined. Texas finally recognized this and started pushing coordinated control efforts across large geographic areas, not individual farms, not a single county. Massive multi-county operations where everyone commits to the same timeline and methods. Norman witnessed the difference when everyone in the area simultaneously committed to nightly hunting, strategic trapping, and toxin deployment. The hogs had nowhere to retreat. Population density dropped fast. Crop damage plummeted. The economic impact reversed. Texas Wildlife Services now provides guidance on organizing these coordinated efforts. They help landowners form groups, share equipment costs, synchronize hunting schedules, and deploy multiple control methods in waves that keep hog populations constantly pressured. Communication networks using group messaging apps coordinate real-time responses. When one farmer spots hog movement, neighboring hunters mobilize immediately. Shared trail cameras map hog travel patterns across property boundaries. Equipment pools allow small farmers access to expensive technology they couldn't afford on their own. The social cooperation aspect transforms isolated failures into collective success. Landowners who want to work together, who are willing to get after the pigs and stay with them, will be successful. Leland said the key is keeping the numbers down. Edge properties, the boundaries of coordinated control zones, see hogs repopulate first. But even those areas benefit from the overall population decline. And as more regions adopt coordinated approaches, the gaps close. Yet, there's one more element to the solution that Texas is developing that will change everything permanently. The future of control. Norman mentioned something during an interview that caught attention. Maybe something to make them sterile could reduce the numbers. It turns out that researchers are already working on it. Fertility control for feral hogs is in development, targeting reproductive hormones that would render boars and sows unable to breed without killing them. The concept is controversial, but potentially game-changing. Unlike toxins that kill, sterilization would let hog populations naturally decline over time through attrition. No reproduction means eventual elimination without the ethical concerns of mass culling. It also avoids the perpetual cycle of removal where you kill thousands of hogs only to have the population rebound within months. The challenge is delivery. How do you ensure every hog in a region consumes enough sterilization bait to become infertile? How do you prevent non-target species from ingesting it? How do you verify it's working without counting every pig? These questions don't have answers yet, but Texas is funding research because they understand something critical. You can't trap, shoot, or poison your way out of a 2.6 million hog problem. You need to stop them from reproducing in the first place. Meanwhile, thermal imagery technology is making night hunting devastatingly effective. Norman's best results come from hunters using thermal scopes to locate and eliminate entire sounders in a single night. The hogs can't hide. They can't adapt to technology that sees their body heat through darkness and vegetation. Drone surveillance is another emerging tool. Farmers are mapping hog movement patterns, identifying bedding areas and travel corridors, then deploying targeted control methods at choke points. It's wildlife management meets military tactics. Texas is also exploring biological controls, diseases specific to feral hogs that wouldn't affect domestic pigs or other wildlife. This approach remains highly controversial and is years away from any approval, but research continues. The ethical implications of biological control spark fierce debate. Critics argue that deliberately releasing disease violates ecological principles and risks unintended consequences. Proponents counter that feral hogs themselves constitute an ecological disaster, harming dozens of native species. The discussion mirrors historical debates about introducing natural predators to control invasive species, complex and without definitive answers. The stunning part isn't any single innovation. It's that Texas stopped looking for one silver bullet and instead built an entire arsenal of smart traps, helicopter hunts, precision toxins, coordinated efforts, thermal technology, and future sterilization. Success in Texas has rewritten the rules of wildlife management, But this victory also exposes a deeper truth, one that's forcing the rest of the country to rethink everything they thought they knew about invasive species control. The results nobody expected. Remember Irving, where wild pigs tore up yards near Champions Park? Texas Wildlife Services deployed their smart trap system. Within weeks, the neighborhood went from daily hog sightings to none. Homeowners who installed electric fencing saw it pay off when combined with coordinated trapping. Norman's experience tells a similar story. We have some damage every year. Sometimes it's just a partial field. It's over. Compare that to 600 acres replanted in one season. The situation hasn't been eliminated, but it's manageable now. His brothers hunt full-time every night during planting season, using thermal imagery to prevent the catastrophic losses they use to absorb. The psychological shift matters as much as actual numbers. Farmers who felt helpless now feel empowered. They're not victims anymore. They're managers implementing proven strategies. That confidence changes how they invest in their operations. They plant corn again in fields they'd abandoned. They expand acreage knowing protection systems work. The mental toll of constant hog anxiety lifted, measurably improving their quality of life on their farms. Across Texas, areas that implemented coordinated multi-method control practices are reporting 60 to 70% reductions in hog populations within 2 years. Crop damage is declining proportionally. The $119 million annual loss is dropping significantly as more regions adopt the comprehensive approach. Helpless Bacon and similar outfitters are booked solid through their seasons. What started as a novel experience for thrill seekers has become a legitimate population control service that landowners repeatedly request. The company estimates it has eliminated tens of thousands of hogs from its partner properties. Competition between outfitters drove innovation and price drops. New companies entered the market offering specialized services such as dawn hunts, dusk hunts, full moon hunts, and thermal-equipped night flights. Package prices have fallen by a few thousand now as economies of scale have kicked in. More flights mean lower per-hunt costs for farmers and more consistent pressure on hog populations. Toxin programs, despite controversy, are showing the fastest elimination rates for isolated hog populations. Properly trained landowners are removing entire sounders in 2 cycles. The key is patience and strict adherence to protocols. But the most unexpected result, the economic boom. Companies manufacturing smart traps, thermal equipment, helicopter services, toxin delivery systems, fencing and training programs have created an entire industry around feral hog control. Jobs now exist that didn't 5 years ago. The hog control industry employs several Texans directly and thousands more in supporting roles. Equipment manufacturers in states beyond Texas benefit from demand. Training programs at community colleges teach certification courses. Insurance companies created hog damage policies. Meat processors buy culled hogs for dog food and fertilizer production, recouping some control costs. Economic analysis suggests the industry generates millions of dollars in annual revenue, far more than the damage it prevents. Remarkably, Texas turned a $119 million problem into an economic opportunity while solving the underlying issue. Is the problem completely gone? Number 2, 6 million feral hogs. Eradication isn't realistic, but the fight has fundamentally changed. Farmers aren't powerless anymore. They have proven tools, scalable methods, and coordinated efforts that truly make a difference. Norman still loses some crops each year, but now it's 40 acres instead of 600. His brothers still hunt at night, but they're preventing damage instead of reacting to it. That shift from reactive to proactive is everything and is what defines real progress. Other states are watching Texas closely. Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri, all of which are dealing with feral hog explosions, are adopting the Texas model. What started as people laughing at Texas for their wild boar problem has turned into everyone copying their solutions. Federal agencies now reference Texas protocols and nationwide recommendations. The USDA Wildlife Services Division bases training materials on Texas success stories. International delegations from Australia and New Zealand facing similar invasive species problems. Tour Texas operations to learn the coordinated approach. What Texas built out of necessity became a blueprint for invasive species management worldwide. The coordinated approach is spreading. The technology is improving. The industry is growing. And the hog population, for the first time in decades, is truly declining in controlled zones. What control method do you think works best? Is there another solution that Texas is missing? Share your thoughts in the comments below.